This is my story on the first and last time I ever used a Ouija board. Those that believe without a doubt that demons don't exist can cite every and all studies possible. But when you have a board predicting events with eerie accuracy and exposing secrets amongst friends in a group, you know that there are things in this world which we currently don't understand as humans. The events that took place scared me so bad that I slept with the light on for 2 years afterwards. No exaggeration whatsoever. I could fill a book with all the things that happened the night and the month following. Minor things that happened over the course of the year, but that first month really threw me for a loop. I'll touch on some of the things that happened that night, but know that I'm leaving a lot out and only touching on major points. So a little background. Me and my 2 friends were slightly buzzed, bored with video games, and the friend that owns the house mentions that he has a Ouija board. My other friend is Catholic and says it's a terrible idea to use it, but that just makes me want to do it more, and we even somehow convince him to join. Being buzzed in the basement in complete darkness, things are a little spooky, but none of us believe in Ouija boards. We poke fun for a little bit, I fake the piece moving, and then we get serious and decide to get quiet and really try before giving up and returning to video games. Well, that last go ended up working. The piece moved very slightly and was very weak, but it did move. This is when the cats seemed to immediately be aware of what was happening, and they came down into the basement and started howling. It was frightening, honestly, just to hear the howl. The board said that it hated cats, although wouldn't explain why, just ignored the question, and said to remove them immediately. And so we did. So to make sure we weren't all being played by each other, we all took turns moving the piece without help. We could still communicate. I was skeptical that my friends weren't just in on it together to mess with me, so I asked the board something I knew neither of them could possibly know. I asked the board if it could tell me what my grandmother's birthday was, and slowly but surely it spelled out the date, 11/13/48, which was in fact my grandmother's birthday. There was no way either of them could have known that, considering my grandmother had passed away when I was a child, way before I knew either of them, and never really talked about her. The entity, which I won't name, I'll admit still out of fear, then predicted my friend's next drug test. He was on probation for smoking pot. He can call in to see when it is after a certain time, midnight I think, and once the time came, we called in and it was correct. So we ended up spending 5 hours asking questions. The piece began to move faster and grew stronger. The entity even made jokes at some points, which really threw us for a loop. We moved to the attic since dawn was coming, and the board for some reason said it couldn't work in the light that was seeping through the basement windows. When we set up in the attic, the entity says it isn't the one we were originally talking to. We ask it to get the right entity, and it says no. We're about to call it quits anyway when the piece moves to H and then A. We're all thinking, what the hell does that mean? And then realize it spelled ha, which of course, laughter. It was the entity the whole time. We forgot about keeping the cats out. The path upstairs isn't blocked, so they come up and do the hissing and howling fits again. Again, the board says to remove them, and we do. So throughout the process, Catholic boy is freaking out, and the entity is constantly freaking him out by moving the piece off the board and into his lap. At one point, it calls him his pet. Shit gets weird, and we decide to stop. We read that you have to ask the entity to go to the goodbye text to clear the board, but the entity continuously says it won't do it, and that's it. It will follow us for the rest of our lives. It starts predicting other things and saying messed up things that I don't want to get into, so we finally convince it to say goodbye. At which point, books fall off of a very stable bookshelf, after which I decided it was time to go home. A month later, I'm back playing video games, completely forgot about this incident, despite having insane nightmares almost every night of the week, and weird things happening to me. Same house, same 2 friends. We are playing Halo and expecting another friend. I hear a door slam. I look at my friend that owned the house, and I said, about damn time, and then look at the clock. It's 2 a.m., and it turns out that friend couldn't make it. The door in the attic slammed, and we all looked at each other wearily. My bud's girlfriend and the roommate started talking about voices, door slams, etc., and how they won't stay in the house by themselves anymore. This is just a very broad summary. A lot of crazy shit has happened since that board was used. Secrets in the group were given out. Predictions came true that I didn't touch on. We all had crazy nightmares. And at one point, my girlfriend had a dream of a demon floating above me while I was up late at night with her in bed. A real surreal dream where she was in the perspective of the corner of the room in real time. She drew the demon, and all I can say is it's terrifying. I was awake at the time and saw my window blinds move back and forth in an S pattern, which isn't natural and no reason for them to do that. She saw this in the dream, and the demon was laughing while he was moving the blinds on the window. Things like this, which I don't care to remember, happened frequently there for a while. Anyway, I tell all my friends not to mess with them. I'll tell my kids not to. There are things we don't understand, and I'll never use one again in my lifetime. And I recommend no one else does either.